The alarm bells rang through Kepler Station like angry birds screaming in the night. Sora Park jumped from her chair at the communications desk. Her coffee cup fell to the floor, making a brown mess on the metal plates. She had been working the night shift for 3 years, but she had never heard this kind of alarm before. "Commander Kim," she called out. "We have something big coming in." Hyun-Woo Kim ran into the communications room. His uniform was still wrinkled from sleep. The commander had been resting in his quarters when the alarm started. He looked at the big screen showing waves of light and sound. "What is it, Sora?" he asked. His voice was calm, but his eyes were wide. "It's a distress signal, sir. But it's not from any human ship. The computer says it came from very far away, maybe 800 light-years from here." Hyun-Woo moved closer to the screens. The signal looked like nothing he had seen before. It was not the clean, sharp signals that human ships sent. This one was weak and broken, like someone crying for help with their last breath. "Can you clean it up? Make it clearer?" he asked. Sora's fingers danced over the control panel. She had learned how to work with signals from her father, who had worked on Earth's first deep space stations. The signal slowly became clearer. Strange sounds came from the speakers. It was not human language, but the computer was trying to translate it. "Commander, the translation is coming through now," Sora said. Her face was pale. The voice that came from the speakers was high and soft, like wind through leaves. But the words were full of fear and pain. "To anyone who can hear this message, we are the Villani people of Theros Prime. Our world is dying. The Kreks have come to our system. They burn our cities. They take our people. We have no weapons that can stop them. Our defense ships are destroyed. Please, if anyone hears this, help us. We do not want to die." The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. The room was quiet except for the hum of the station's machines. Hyun-Woo felt something cold in his stomach. In all his years in the Deep Space Fleet, he had never heard anything like this. Earth had contact with many alien species, but most of them were peaceful traders or scientists. The Kreks were different. Everyone knew about the Kreks' dominion, but they usually stayed far away from human space. "Sora, how old is this signal?" he asked. She checked her instruments. "It's been traveling for about 6 months, sir. The quantum relay that sent it, the computer shows it went dark right after this message. That means, yes, sir. Their last communication station was destroyed right after they sent this." Hyun-Woo picked up the red phone on the communications desk. This phone connected directly to Earth Defense Command. Admiral Ji-Won Choi would not be happy about being woken up, but this could not wait. The phone rang twice before a tired voice answered. "This better be important, Commander Kim. Admiral, we have received a distress signal from the Villani civilization. The Kreks' dominion is attacking their homeworld." There was silence on the other end. Then Admiral Choi's voice became sharp and clear. "Send me everything you have. How many Kreks ships?" "We don't know yet, Admiral. The signal was sent 6 months ago. By now they might all be dead or enslaved," Admiral Choi finished. "Commander, I want you to get Captain Lee on the line. Tell him to prepare the Indomitable for immediate departure. We're calling up the fleet." "Which fleet, Admiral?" "The Deathworlder fleet, Commander. It's time the galaxy remembered why they call us the most dangerous species in known space." 20 minutes later, Captain Dong-Hyun Lee's face appeared on the main screen. He was a big man with scars on his hands from his early days as a ship engineer. His ship, the UES Indomitable, was one of the most feared vessels in human space. "I've read the signal transcript," Captain Lee said. "The Villani are a peaceful species. They've never hurt anyone. Their planet is mostly covered in crystal cities that float above the ground. They're beautiful people." "You know them?" Hyun-Woo asked. "I met some Villani traders 5 years ago at the Centauri station. They're small, maybe 4 feet tall, with skin like silver glass. They can't handle heavy gravity or thick air like we can. They're what the galaxy calls a garden world species. They evolved on a world where nothing ever tried to eat them." Sora looked confused. "What does that mean?" Captain Lee's face became dark. "It means they never learned how to fight. They don't understand war like we do. The Kreks see them as easy prey. Admiral Choi's voice came through the speakers. Captains, listen carefully. I'm authorizing the use of the full Deathworlder fleet. We haven't deployed it since the Centauri Wars, but this is why we built it. The galaxy needs to see what happens when someone threatens innocent people. Down in the station's engineering section, Tai Min-jung was already working. He had heard about the distress signal and knew what was coming. Taemin was young, only 25, but he was the best slipspace engineer in the fleet. His job was to make sure human ships could travel faster and farther than anyone else. Computer, show me the distance to the Theros system, he said. Distance, 847.3 light-years. Current slipspace drives can make the journey in 15 days. Taemin shook his head. Not fast enough. If we take 15 days, there might be nothing left to save. He looked at the engine designs on his screen. Computer, what if we overcharge the slipspace cores by 30%? Warning, this modification has a 23% chance of engine failure. And how much time would it save? Journey time would be reduced to 8.7 days. Taemin smiled. It was the kind of smile that meant he was about to do something dangerous. Start the modifications. We're going to push these engines harder than they've ever been pushed. Sir, this is very risky. If the engines fail in slipspace, the fleet could be lost. If we don't try, the Villani are already lost, Taemin said. Besides, risk is what humans do best. Back in the communications room, more signals were coming in, not distress calls, but military communications. Ships were being called back from patrol duties. Space stations were sending their best crews to Earth. The entire human fleet was waking up. Sora, I want you to keep trying to reach the Theros system, Hyunwoo said. Maybe some Villani are still alive. Maybe they can tell us what we're flying into. Yes, sir. But Commander, what if we're too late? What if the Kreks have already won? Hyunwoo looked at the star charts showing the long distance to Villani space. 800 light-years was very far. A lot could happen in 6 months. But he remembered something his father had told him when he joined the fleet. Son, humans don't give up. Even when everyone else thinks something is impossible, we keep trying. That's what makes us different. Sora, even if we're too late to save the Villani, we can still make sure the Kreks pay for what they've done. The galaxy needs to know that attacking peaceful people has consequences. The young woman nodded. She had never been in a real war, but she understood. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as protectors of the weak. It was not just what they did, it was who they were. Admiral Choi's voice came through the speakers again. All stations, this is Fleet Command. The Deathworlder fleet will deploy in 72 hours. All crews report to stations immediately. This is not a drill. We're going to show the Kreks what happens when they pick a fight with a Deathworld species. As the station buzzed with activity, Hyunwoo looked out the big window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Villani people were either dead, enslaved, or hiding in fear. But help was coming. The most dangerous fleet ever built by the most dangerous species in the galaxy was about to deploy. The Kreks had no idea what they had started. Earth's orbital shipyards looked like angry metal flowers blooming in space. Hundreds of ships floated in the construction bays, while thousands of workers moved like busy ants between them. The biggest military fleet in human history was getting ready to leave home. Captain Minho Kang stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and watched the loading process. His ship was a dreadnought, one of the biggest and most dangerous ships ever built. It was as long as 3 city blocks and covered in armor thick enough to stop asteroid impacts. The Retribution carried weapons that could crack planets in half. Captain, the kinetic bombardment systems are loaded and ready, said his weapons officer. We have enough tungsten rods to level every Krek city in their empire. Minho nodded. Kinetic weapons were simple but deadly. They were just metal rods shot at very high speed. But when something heavy moved fast enough, it hit harder than nuclear bombs. Other species in the galaxy thought kinetic weapons were too brutal to use. Humans called them practical. What about the crew? Are we ready for a long journey? Yes, sir. We have enough food, water, and air for 6 months. The medical bay is stocked for combat operations. Dr. Lim has prepared everything we might need. Down in the medical bay, Dr. Seung-hee Lim was indeed preparing for war. She had been a ship doctor for 10 years, but this was different. The Deathworlder fleet was not going on a peaceful mission. They were going to fight the most violent empire in the galaxy. "Nurse Park, make sure we have extra blood for transfusions," she said. "And check the surgery robots. If we're fighting the Kreks, we'll need to be ready for heavy casualties." The young nurse looked worried. "Doctor, how bad do you think it will be?" Dr. Lim stopped what she was doing. She had read the reports about Krek's weapons. They used energy, beams that could cut through most armor. But she had also read reports about human soldiers in combat. "The Kreks fight like most species in the galaxy," she said. "They try to avoid getting hurt. They surrender when things get too dangerous. But humans are different. We keep fighting even when we're badly hurt. That's going to surprise them." In another part of the shipyard, Lieutenant Ye-Jin Han was teaching her tactical team about Krek's battle plans. She had studied every Krek's battle for the past 20 years. The conference room was full of officers taking notes. "The Kreks use standard galaxy tactics," she said, pointing at the big screen. "They form lines of ships and fire energy weapons at each other until one side gives up. They're very good at this kind of fighting because they have powerful shields and accurate weapons." "So how do we beat them?" asked a young ensign. Ye-Jin smiled. It was not a nice smile. "We don't fight their kind of battle. Human ships are built different. We have thick armor instead of energy shields. We use kinetic weapons that go right through their defenses. And most important, we don't form neat lines and take turns shooting." She pressed a button and the screen showed human battle formations. The ships moved in 3 dimensions, diving and climbing like birds of prey. "We attack from all directions at once. We ram through their formations. We board their ships and fight hand to hand. We do all the things that civilized species think are too dangerous or too crazy." The officers in the room looked excited. They had trained their whole lives for this kind of fighting. Meanwhile, in a secure room deep inside Earth Defense Command, Jae-Sung-Oh was preparing a different kind of weapon. He was the head of psychological warfare, and his job was to break enemy morale before the shooting even started. "Computer, show me everything we know about Krek's psychology," he said. The screen filled with information about the Krek species. They were reptiles from a hot, dry world. They were predators, but they had evolved to hunt small, weak prey. They had never faced another predator species until they met humans 50 years ago. "Interesting," Jae-Sung said. "They're scared of anything bigger and stronger than they are, and they've heard the stories about humans." He started writing a message that would be broadcast on all Krek's communication channels. It would be simple and direct, the kind of message that would make Krek's soldiers think twice about fighting. "People of the Krek's dominion," he wrote, "you have attacked a peaceful species under human protection. You have one chance to withdraw. If you do not, you will face the Deathworlder fleet. Ask your elders what happened the last time someone made humans angry." In Docking Bay 7, Commander Bo-Young Seo was inspecting her fighter pilots. The UES Vengeance was a carrier ship, and its job was to launch small, fast fighters into battle. Bo-Young had handpicked every pilot under her command. "Listen up," she told her pilots. "We're going up against Krek's fighters. They're good, but they have one big weakness. They can't handle high-gravity maneuvers. Their bodies are too fragile." "How fragile?" asked Lieutenant Soo-Jin Park, one of her best pilots. "A normal human can handle about 9 times Earth's gravity for a short time. A Krek's pilot passes out at about 4 times. That means we can make turns and dives that they can't even follow." The pilots looked at each other with grins on their faces. This was going to be fun. "But don't get cocky," Bo-Young warned. "They have good weapons and good training. They've conquered a dozen species. The only reason they haven't conquered more is that they haven't met anyone who fights back hard enough." Back on the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Dong-Hyun Lee was talking to Admiral Ji-Won Choi on the main screen. The Admiral was in her office on Earth coordinating the biggest military operation in human history. "Captain, how long until we can depart?" the Admiral asked. 6 more hours, Admiral. Engineer Young says his slip space modifications are almost ready. But he wants me to warn you, we're pushing the engines past their safe limits. What are the risks? About 1 ship in 4 might have engine problems during the journey. We could lose some ships before we even reach the battle. Admiral Choi was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned forward. Captain, in your opinion, is it worth the risk? Dong-hyun thought about the Volani distress signal. He remembered the fear in that alien voice, begging for help across hundreds of light years of empty space. Yes, Admiral. It's worth it. If we arrive too late, those people die for nothing. If we arrive in time, maybe we can save some of them. Then we go with Jung's modifications. Signal the fleet. We depart in 6 hours. Down in engineering, Taemin Jung was making final adjustments to the slip space engines. These engines could fold space and time, letting ships travel faster than light. But they were complex and dangerous. Push them too hard and they could tear a ship apart. Sir, are you sure about this? Asked his assistant, a young engineer named Kiho. No, I'm not sure, Taemin said honestly. But that's the point. If we only did things we were sure about, we'd never save anyone. He looked at the engine readings on his screen. The power levels were higher than he had ever seen. The engines were running hot and fast, like a racing car pushed to its limits. Kiho, run a final check on all systems. I want to know if anything looks wrong. Sir, everything looks wrong. We're running these engines at 130% of their design capacity. Taemin laughed. Then we're doing it right. Humans have been breaking the rules since we learned to make fire. It's gotten us this far. All across the shipyard, similar scenes were playing out. Human engineers were pushing their technology past safe limits. Human soldiers were loading weapons that other species considered too dangerous to use. Human doctors were preparing to treat injuries that would kill most aliens. This was what made humans different from the rest of the galaxy. Other species built their ships to be safe and efficient. Humans built their ships to win fights, even if it was dangerous, for the people inside them. Young Mi Kim sat in her intelligence office reading intercepted Krex communications. She was the best codebreaker in the fleet, and her job was to find out what the enemy was thinking. Interesting, she said, looking at the decoded messages. The Krex are celebrating their victory at Theros Prime. They think they've won a great battle. She kept reading. The messages talked about Volani prisoners being sent to work camps. They talked about Volani cities being strip-mined for valuable crystals. They talked about plans to sell Volani children as exotic pets. Young Mi felt something hot and angry growing in her chest. She had never met a Volani person, but that did not matter. They were innocent people being hurt by bullies, and that was enough. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Choi. Admiral, this is Intelligence Division. I have new information about the situation at Theros Prime. Go ahead, Kim. Ma'am, the Krex aren't just occupying the planet, they're enslaving the entire population. According to their communications, they plan to work the Volani to death in mining operations. There was silence on the channel. Then Admiral Choi's voice came back, cold and hard as steel. Kim, I want you to broadcast those intercepted messages to every ship in the fleet. I want every human to know exactly what we're flying into. Yes, ma'am, should I translate them? No. Send them exactly as they are. Let our people hear the Krex celebrating the suffering of innocence. Let them hear what kind of enemy we're going to face. As the final preparations continued, word of the intercepted messages spread through the fleet. Human soldiers and sailors read about Krex plans for their prisoners. They saw the casual way the Krex talked about enslaving an entire species. Space near Theros Prime had never seen anything like it. One moment there was empty darkness between the stars. The next moment, 847 human warships appeared in perfect formation, their engines glowing like angry stars. On the bridge of the Krex flagship Dominator, Admiral Vorthak was drinking his morning stimulant when his sensor officer started shouting. Admiral, we have multiple contacts dropping out of slipspace, massive energy signatures. Vorthak set down his drink and looked at the tactical display. His yellow eyes grew wide as ship after ship appeared on the screen. The computer was having trouble counting them all. How many ships? He demanded. Sir, we count at least 800 vessels. They're huge, sir. Much bigger than standard galactic designs. Vorthak felt something cold in his stomach. The Krex had 300 ships in the Theros system, which should have been more than enough to handle any rescue force. But this was not just any rescue force. Computer, identify the species, he ordered. Species identification, human, origin, Earth, Sol system, classification, Class 12, Deathworld species. Vorthak's hands began to shake. Every species in the galaxy knew about humans. They were the monsters from the deadly world, the predators who fought wars like no civilized being could imagine. But they usually stayed in their own space, far from Krek's territory. "Why are the humans here?" he asked, but his sensor officer had no answer. On the human flagship Indomitable, Captain Dong-Hyun Lee was watching his own sensors. The Krek's fleet was spread out around Theros Prime like a net. Some ships were in orbit around the planet. Others were patrolling the outer system. All of them were turning toward the human fleet. "Communications, this is the captain. Open a channel to all Kreks. Vessels, channel open, sir." Dong-Hyun's voice was calm and clear as he spoke to the enemy fleet. "Attention, Krek's forces. This is Captain Lee of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are ordered to withdraw from Volani space immediately and release all prisoners. You have 1 hour. To comply, this is your only warning." The response came quickly. Admiral Vorthak's voice was full of anger and fear. "Human ship, you have no business in this system. The Volani worlds belong to the Krek's dominion now. Leave immediately or face the consequences." Captain Lee looked at Commander Hyun-Woo Kim, who was standing at the communications station. Both men had the same cold expression on their faces. "Admiral, Vorthak, you have 59 minutes, Dong-Hyun said, then cut the channel. At the same time, he opened another channel to the survivors on Theros Prime. The human computers had detected weak signals from underground shelters where Volani civilians were hiding. "Attention, Volani survivors. This is the Earth Defense Fleet. Help has arrived. Mark your positions with any available signals and take cover in your deepest shelters. We are coming to get you. Down on the planet's surface, in a crystal cavern, deep underground." Volani Counselor Thisara heard the human transmission. She was tall for her species at 4.5 feet, with silver skin that glowed softly in the dark. Around her, 300 other Volani waited in terror. "The humans have come," she whispered to her people. "The Deathworlders are here." Some of the Volani began to cry with relief. Others were afraid. They had heard stories about humans, tales of creatures so violent that other predator species feared them. "Will they hurt us too?" asked a young Volani child. Thisara touched the child's face gently. "No, little one. Humans are dangerous, but not to innocent people. They fight to protect others, not to hurt them." She hoped she was right. Back in space, the human fleet was moving into battle positions, but they were not forming the neat lines that most species used for space combat. Instead, human ships spread out in 3 dimensions, moving like a pack of hunting animals. Lieutenant Commander Insu Baek was leading the first wave of fighters from the carrier Vengeance. His squadron of 12 ships was diving toward the Krek's patrol line at speeds that made his bones ache. "Razor Squadron, this is Lead," he said into his radio. "Remember, Krek's fighters can't handle high-G maneuvers. Use that against them. Hit, hard and fast." "Copy, Lead," came the replies from his pilots. Lieutenant Soo-Jin Lee was flying on his right wing, Lieutenant Kyung-Ho Park on his left. All of them were grinning inside their helmets. The Krek's fighters came up to meet them, moving in careful formations. Their ships were sleek and fast, with powerful energy weapons. Against most species, they would have been deadly opponents. But humans were not most species. Insu pulled his fighter into a turn that created 8 times Earth's gravity. His vision went gray at the edges, but he held on. Behind him, the Krek's fighters tried to follow and failed. Their pilots passed out from the pressure, and their ships spun out of control. "This is almost too easy," Soo-Jin said over the radio, as she shot down 2 Krek's fighters that could not turn fast enough to avoid her. But the real shock came when the main human battle line opened fire. Captain Min-Ho Kang gave the order from the bridge of the Retribution. All ships, fire kinetic, weapons full barrage, thousands of metal rods launched from human ships, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic coils. The Kreks had never faced kinetic weapons before. Their energy shields, designed to stop laser beams and plasma bolts, did nothing to slow down. Solid metal moving at significant fractions of light speed. The tungsten rods punched through Krek ships like needles through paper. Hull armor that should have stopped any weapon simply vaporized. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before broke apart in silent explosions. Admiral Vorthak watched in horror as a quarter of his fleet was destroyed in the first minute of battle. "What kind of weapons are those, Guard?" he demanded. "Sir, they appear to be simple kinetic projectiles, but they're moving at 0.3% of light speed." "That's impossible. No civilized species uses such crude weapons." His tactical officer looked up from his console with fear in his eyes. "Sir, humans are not a civilized species. They're Deathworlders." The word sent a chill through the Krek's bridge crew. Deathworlders were the stuff of nightmares, creatures that evolved on worlds so dangerous that simply surviving made them into living weapons. The battle continued, but it was not really a battle. It was more like a natural disaster hitting the Krek's fleet. Human ships moved in ways that defied Krek's understanding of space combat. They dove through debris fields that should have been impossible to navigate. They rammed through Krek's formations, their thick armor absorbing hits that would have destroyed other ships. Taemin Jung monitored the battle from his engineering station, watching as human technology, simple and brutal compared to galactic standards, proved devastatingly effective against an enemy that had never faced a real predator species. "Sir, our kinetic weapons are performing above expectations," he reported to Captain Lee. "Krek's armor is designed to stop energy weapons, not solid impacts. We're cutting through them like they're made of paper." On the Krek's flagship, panic was spreading. Admiral Vorthak's communications officer was receiving reports from across the fleet. "Sir, the terror squadron is gone. The mighty claw is breaking apart. The ship killer is—" "Oh no, sir, they're boarding the killer." Vorthak's eyes went wide. "Boarding? In the middle of a battle?" "Yes, sir. Human soldiers are cutting through the hull and fighting inside our ships." This was Marine Colonel Hanul Kim leading her boarding parties. The humans had shot grappling cables at damaged Krek's vessels and were now fighting their way through the ships room by room. The Krek's Marines inside their own ships were learning what it meant to fight a species that considered vacuum. Just another environment. Human soldiers moved through depressurized corridors without life support suits, breathing from small tanks while their enemies suffocated in the thin air that leaked from their damaged ships. Even worse for the Kreks, the humans seemed to enjoy the fighting. They laughed as they advanced through smoke and fire. They sang old battle songs as they charged positions that should have been impossible to take. Dr. Shung-Hee Lim was setting up a field hospital on one of the captured Krek's ships. She watched human Marines walk in with injuries that should have killed them. Holes in their armor, burns on their skin, broken bones that they ignored while they kept fighting. "Medic, patch this up," said a young Marine with a piece of metal sticking out of his shoulder. "I want to get back to the fight." "You need surgery," Dr. Lim told him. "That metal is very close to your heart." The Marine shrugged. "It's not in my heart, so I'm fine. Just tape it down so it doesn't move around." This was what the Kreks could not understand. Humans considered injuries that would hospitalize other species for months to be minor inconveniences. Meanwhile, Jae Sung-Oh's psychological warfare broadcasts were being transmitted on all Krek's communication channels. The messages were simple and terrifying. "Krek soldiers, you are fighting the humans. Now, we are the species that hunts other hunters. We are the predators that predators fear. Surrender now, and you will live. Keep fighting, and you will learn why the galaxy calls us Deathworlders." The effect was immediate. Krek's ships started surrendering, without firing a shot. Their crews had heard the stories about human warfare, and now they were seeing it with their own eyes. Admiral Vorthak made one final, desperate decision. If he could not defeat the humans, he would destroy Theros Prime itself. Better to kill the Villani than let them be rescued by the monsters from Earth. The Battle of Theros Prime was over, but the war was just beginning. Across the galaxy, Krek's commanders were receiving reports that made no sense. Their most powerful fleet had been destroyed in 3 hours by a species they barely knew existed. Captain Dong-Hyun Lee stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed the locations of Krek ships that were surrendering. Blue dots showed human vessels moving to accept their surrender. But there were still orange dots, Krek ships that were trying to run away. "Captain, we have 17 Krek's vessels attempting to flee the system," reported his tactical officer. "Let them go," Donghyun said. "I want them to carry word of what happened here back to their empire. Fear is a weapon too." But not all the Kreks were running. On the surface of Theros Prime, there were still Krek's ground forces holding Villani, prisoners in work camps. These soldiers had not surrendered, and they were threatening to kill their captives if humans landed on the planet. Marine Colonel Hanul Kim was preparing her soldiers for the most dangerous part of the operation. Space battles were simple compared to rescuing hostages. One wrong move could result in thousands of innocent deaths. "Listen up, Marines," she told her assault teams. "The Kreks have about 50,000 Villani prisoners spread across 12 work camps. Intelligence says each camp is guarded by about 200 Krek soldiers." A young corporal raised his hand. "Ma'am, what's our approach? Standard assault?" Hanul shook her head. "Negative. If we go in shooting, the guards will kill the prisoners. We need to be smart about this." She pointed to the tactical map showing the planet's surface. "We're going in silent. Drop pods will put us down 5 kilometers from each camp. We move in on foot and take out the guards before they know we're there." "Ma'am, 5 kilometers through enemy territory? That's a long way to stay hidden." Hanul smiled grimly. "Corporal, humans evolved as persistence hunters. We can move through any terrain without being detected. The Kreks evolved as ambush predators. They're good at hiding and striking quickly, but they're not good at spotting other hunters." The drop pods launched from human ships like metal raindrops falling toward the planet. Inside each pod was a squad of human Marines, armed with weapons designed for close combat. They wore black armor that absorbed light and sound, making them nearly invisible. Private Ji-hoon Min felt his stomach lurch as his drop pod hit the atmosphere. He had been a Marine for 3 years, but this was his first real combat mission. Around him, his squad mates checked their weapons and equipment. "Remember, these Kreks guards have been on this planet for 6 months, said Sergeant Dalsu Park. "They think they're safe. They're not expecting visitors." The pod hit the ground with a soft thud in a crystal forest 20 kilometers from work. Camp 7. Ji-hoon and his squad climbed out and looked around. Theros Prime was beautiful, even after 6 months of Krek's occupation. Crystal trees rose like pillars of light toward the purple sky. The ground was covered with silver grass that chimed softly in the wind, but there were signs of damage everywhere, burned patches where Krek's weapons had fired, broken crystal formations where mining equipment had torn up the landscape. The beauty of the Villani world was being destroyed by greed. "Move out," Sergeant Park whispered. "Stay low, stay quiet, and remember, we're hunting predators now." The human squad moved through the crystal forest like ghosts. Their boots made no sound on the soft ground. Their armor blended with the shadows between the trees. They covered 5 kilometers in 2 hours, moving closer to the work camp with every step. Through his binoculars, Ji-hoon could see the camp ahead. It was an ugly metal scar on the beautiful landscape. Krek's guards walked along high walls, watching for trouble. Inside the walls, hundreds of Villani prisoners worked under the hot sun, mining crystals for their captors. "I count 47 guards visible," whispered the squad sniper. "Probably more inside the buildings." Sergeant Park nodded. "We wait for the signal from the other squads. When everyone is in position, we hit all 12 camps at the same time." Miles away, Colonel Hanul Kim was lying on a hill overlooking Camp 1. This was the biggest camp with almost 8,000 Villani prisoners. It was also the most heavily guarded. If her assault failed here, the Kreks might have time to send warnings to the other camps. "Colonel, all squads report ready," her radio operator whispered. Hanul looked at her watch. The sun was setting over Theros Prime, and darkness would give humans an advantage. Kreks had good eyesight in daylight, but they could not see well in the dark. "All teams, this is command. Execute assault in 3, 2, 1, go." Around the planet, human Marines attacked 12 work camps at the same moment. They moved like deadly shadows, striking before the guards could react. Krek's soldiers, who, had spent months terrorizing helpless Villani suddenly found themselves facing the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. At Work Camp 7, Sergeant Park's squad hit the guard towers first. Their sniper took out the sentries with silent shots while the rest of the team cut through the fence with molecular cutters. They were inside the camp perimeter before the Krex knew they were there. "Contact!" shouted a Krex guard, but the word was cut off as Private Ji-hoon tackled him to the ground. The young Marine had trained for this moment his entire life. Every human child learned that bullies had to be stopped no matter how big or scary they seemed. The Krex guard was bigger than Ji-hoon and had sharp claws and teeth. But the human had something the alien did not: the willingness to take damage, to protect others. Ji-hoon let the guard slash at his armor while he put the alien in a chokehold. Within seconds, the Krex was unconscious. All around the camp, similar scenes played out. Human Marines fought Krex guards in hand-to-hand combat, accepting injuries that would have stopped other species while they subdued their enemies. The humans were not trying to kill the guards. They were trying to capture them alive, which was actually harder than just shooting them. "Prisoner pen is secured," reported Corporal Lee over the radio. "We have about 600 Villani civilians here. They're scared, but unharmed." At Work Camp 1, Colonel Hanul Kim was fighting her. Way toward the command bunker where the camp commander was probably hiding. 2 Krex guards tried to block her path, but she went through them like they were made of paper. The humans had advantages that no Krex soldier understood. They could fight in partial vacuum, extreme heat, and toxic atmospheres. They could take injuries that would kill most species and keep fighting. Most important, they could push themselves beyond their physical limits through sheer determination. "This is impossible," gasped a wounded Krex guard as Colonel Kim stepped over him. "You should be dead. I shot you 3 times. Hanul looked down at the holes in her armor where energy bolts had burned through. Her ribs were probably cracked and her left arm was not working properly, but she was still moving forward. "I've had worse injuries playing sports," she told the guard. "Now stay down and you'll live through this." She kicked in the door of the command bunker and found the Krex camp commander cowering behind his desk. He was a big lizard-like creature with yellow scales and red eyes. In his claws was a weapon pointed at a group of young Villani prisoners. "Stay back, human," he hissed. "Come any closer and I kill them all." Hanul stopped and raised her hands. "Easy there, Commander. Nobody needs to die today. You humans are monsters. You fight like wild animals." "No," Hanul said calmly. "We fight like parents protecting their children. There's a difference." She was stalling for time, waiting for her sniper to get into position. Through her earpiece, she heard the whisper she was waiting for. "I have the shot, Colonel." "Take it." The Krex commander's head exploded as a bullet hit him from outside the bunker. The hostages were safe. Across the planet, the same story played out at all 12 work camps. Human Marines moving faster and hitting harder than the Krex thought possible freed thousands of Villani prisoners. The guards who surrendered were treated well. The guards who fought were defeated but left alive. The guards who threatened prisoners died quickly. By dawn, every work camp on Theros Prime was in human hands. Over 50,000 Villani civilians were free, and the planet was clear of Krex forces. But the psychological impact of the rescue operation went far beyond one planet. News of the battle spread through the galaxy faster than light, carried by Krex survivors who had witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. In the capital city of the Krex Dominion, Supreme Commander Garax was reading battle reports that made no sense. The humans had not just won. They had won without heavy casualties, despite fighting in ways that should have gotten them all killed. "How many humans did we kill?" he demanded. "Sir, preliminary reports indicate approximately 400 human casualties out of a force of nearly 100,000. Garax stared at his aide. "That's impossible. Our weapons were hitting their ships." "I saw the battle recordings." "Yes, sir. But human ships are built differently than ours. They have thick armor instead of energy shields, and their crew compartments are designed to survive hull breaches. Most of their casualties were from the ramming attack on Admiral Vorthak's flagship." The Supreme Commander felt something cold in his stomach. A 0.4% casualty rate against the best fleet the Krex had ever Assembled? 6 months after the Battle of Theros Prime, the galaxy was a different place. News of the human victory had spread to every corner of known space, carried by traders, diplomats, and refugees from a dozen different species. The Krex Dominion, which had been expanding for over a century, had pulled back to their core worlds and stopped all military operations. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Ji-Wan Choi sat in her office reviewing reports from across human space. Every day brought new requests for protection, new pleas for help from species that had never spoken to humans before. The victory at Theros Prime had made Earth the unofficial protector of the galaxy's peaceful peoples. "Ma'am, we have another delegation requesting an audience," said her aide. "The Thaxian Republic wants to discuss a defense treaty." Admiral Choi sighed. "That's the fourth one this week. Set up a meeting for tomorrow and make sure they understand. We don't ask for payment, but we do expect them to help protect each other." The change in galactic politics was dramatic. Before Theros Prime, most species tried to avoid contact with humans. They knew about the Deathworlders, but they also knew humans were dangerous and unpredictable. Now they were lining up to become allies with the only species willing to fight bullies. Back on Theros Prime, the reconstruction was going better than anyone had expected. Human engineering teams worked alongside Vellani artists to rebuild the crystal cities that the Krex had damaged. The combination of human durability and Vellani creativity was producing buildings more beautiful than anything either species could make alone. Tai Min-jung stood in the middle of what had once been the planet's capital city, watching human construction robots work with Vellani crystal singers to grow new towers of living light. The young engineer had been promoted after his slipspace modifications proved successful, and now he was in charge of the entire rebuilding project. "Mr. Young, the new resonance chambers are ready for testing," said Velera, a Vellani engineer, who had become his partner in the reconstruction efforts. She was tall for her species at 5 feet, with skin like polished silver and eyes that glowed soft blue in the sunlight. "Great. How long until we can bring the city's central network back online? If your people can install the power systems, we can have the city singing again by tomorrow night." Taemin smiled. The Vellani cities were not just buildings. They were living works of art that created music as the wind moved through their crystal structures. The Krex had silenced that music when they invaded, but now it would return. "Velera, I want to ask you something. Why do your people trust humans so easily? Most species are afraid of us." The Vellani engineer was quiet for a moment, her silver face thoughtful. "Because fear and danger are not the same thing. A storm is dangerous, but it is not evil. It simply is what it is. Humans are like storms, powerful and sometimes destructive, but not cruel. The Krex were cruel. They enjoyed hurting others. Humans hurt others only to protect someone else." That evening, Taemin attended the ceremony to restart the city's central harmony. Thousands of Vellani gathered in the main square as their engineers activated the resonance network. Slowly, beautifully, the crystal towers began to sing. The music was unlike anything humans had ever heard. Complex melodies that seemed to come from the air itself, harmonies that made the heart race and the spirit soar. But there was something new in the song. Something that had not been there before the war. "What's that sound?" Taemin asked Velera. "That deep note running under everything else?" Velera smiled, and her skin glowed brighter. "That is the song of gratitude. Our city is singing thanks to the humans who saved us. It will sing that song forever, so future generations will remember what you did for us." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of worlds. The human victory at Theros Prime had not just freed one planet, it had changed the entire balance of power in the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear for generations were standing up to their oppressors, knowing that help would come if they called for it. On the border between human and Krex space, Captain Min-Ho Kang patrolled with a mixed fleet of human and allied vessels. His dreadnought Retribution now flew alongside Vellani crystal ships, Thaxian cargo vessels converted to fighters, and even a few former Krex ships whose crews had defected to the human alliance. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," reported his communications officer. "It's coming from the Kepler system, about 40 light-years into Krek space." Minho looked at the tactical display. The Kepler system was supposed to be under Krek's control, but intelligence reports suggested that local populations were rebelling against their occupiers. "Who's sending the signal?" "Sir, it appears to be from the Kepler mining colony. They say they've declared independence from the Krek's dominion and are requesting human protection." Minho felt a familiar stirring in his chest. It was the same feeling he had experienced at Theros Prime, the knowledge that innocent people needed help and he had the power to provide it. "Set course for Kepler. Send a message to Earth Command informing them of our intentions. And signal the colony. Tell them help is on the way." The mixed fleet jumped into slipspace, carrying the message that had become humanity's calling card across the galaxy. No one fights alone while humans draw breath. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Sheng-Hee Lim was working in a very different kind of healing center. The Interspecies Medical Institute had been established 6 months ago to treat trauma survivors from across the galaxy. Many of the patients were former slaves freed from Krek's work camps, but others came from species that had never even heard of humans before Theros Prime. "Doctor, your next patient is here," said her assistant, a young Vellani medic named Silten. "He's from the Altiran system. His people were attacked by raiders 3 months ago." The patient was a tall, thin being with green skin and 4 arms. His species, the Altirans, were peaceful farmers who had never developed military technology. When pirates attacked their worlds, they had no way to fight back, until they heard about the humans. "Dr. Lim, my name is Zethmar," the patient said through the translation device. "I wanted to thank you for accepting me here. My people, we did not know that anyone in the galaxy would help strangers." Dr. Lim smiled gently. "Every patient who comes here teaches us something new. Your people's knowledge of agriculture is helping us grow food for refugee camps across 3 sectors. We're all helping each other." This was the real change that Theros Prime had brought to the galaxy. For the first time in galactic history, different species were working together not for profit or political advantage, but simply because it was the right thing to do. In the intelligence office of Earth Defense Command, Young-Mi Kim was analyzing communication intercepts from across the galaxy. What she saw confirmed what everyone had suspected. The human victory had triggered a wave of rebellions against oppressive governments throughout known space. "Admiral Choi, we're seeing uprisings in 14 different sectors," she reported during the daily briefing. "The Kreks are pulling back from their outer territories. The Vorthan Empire is negotiating with rebel colonies instead of trying to crush them. Even the hegemony is offering concessions to their subject species." Admiral Choi studied the galactic map, showing the locations of conflicts and negotiations. "Any requests for human intervention?" 17 so far this week, but most of them are asking for medical aid, engineering support, or diplomatic assistance. They're not asking us to fight their wars for them. Good. That's what we want to see. People standing up for themselves with humans providing support instead of taking over. This had been humanity's strategy from the beginning. Not to build an empire, but to make it possible for others to be free. The galaxy was learning that humans were dangerous to their enemies, but valuable to their friends. On Theros Prime, the reconstruction was nearly complete. The crystal cities sang their harmonious songs under alien skies, but now they were protected by orbital defense platforms built with human technology. The combination of Vellani beauty and human strength had created something new and wonderful. Counselor. Thisara stood in her new office, looking out at the city she had helped to rebuild. Through the crystal walls, she could see human engineers working alongside Vellani artists, creating wonders that neither species could have imagined alone. Counselor, the Earth delegation has arrived for the Alliance ceremony. Her assistant informed her. Thisara nodded. Today was the day that the Vellani Republic would formally join the growing alliance of species that humans called the Galactic Protection League. It was not a government or an empire. It was simply a group of peoples who had agreed to protect each other. The ceremony took place in the rebuilt Grand Assembly, a crystal amphitheater that could hold 50,000 beings. Representatives from 37 different species had come to witness the signing of the Alliance Treaty. But the most important guests were the human soldiers, sailors and civilians, who had made this day possible. Captain Dong-Hyun Lee represented Earth at the ceremony. He had been promoted to admiral after Theros Prime, but he still preferred to be called captain. As he walked to the podium to speak, the entire assembly fell silent. "Friends and allies," he began. 6 months ago, we received a desperate call for help from across the galaxy.